My stepdaughter called me at midnight from her college dorm, sobbing. Monique, I need to tell you something about Dad. Something he made me promise never to say. I'd only been her stepmother for 5 years. She'd never called me Mom before. And what she told me in the next 10 minutes made me realize why. But let me back up, because understanding what happened that night requires understanding how I became part of this family in the first place. How I walked into a situation I didn't fully comprehend. How I married a man I thought I knew. Before I continue, I want to ask you something. If you're watching this story, please hit that like button. It really helps me bring you more important stories like this one. And let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. I love connecting with all of you. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Monique Stevens. I'm 35 years old, and I work as a hospital administrator at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. It's a demanding job, managing budgets, coordinating departments, dealing with endless bureaucracy, but I love it. I love the feeling of making a difference, even if it's behind the scenes. I grew up in Detroit, the youngest of 3 daughters. My parents were both teachers. My dad taught high school math. My mom taught elementary music. We didn't have much money, but we had love, stability, and a clear understanding of right and wrong. My parents raised us to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That upbringing would matter more than I knew. I moved to Chicago for college, University of Illinois at Chicago, and never left. I got my degree in healthcare administration, worked my way up from an entry-level position to my current role, and built a life I was proud of. I had my own apartment in Lincoln Park, a close circle of friends, and a career trajectory that excited me. What I didn't have was a serious relationship. I dated, of course. But between my demanding job and my tendency to see red flags early, I never found someone worth committing to long-term. My friends joked that my standards were too high. I joked back that my standards were exactly where they should be. Then I met Richard Stevens. He went by Rick, except in professional settings where Richard sounded more authoritative. He was 42 when we met, 7 years older than me. A successful investment banker at a prestigious firm in the Loop. Handsome in that distinguished, older man way, salt and pepper hair, expensive suits, confident bearing. We met at a hospital fundraising gala. He was there representing his firm, which had donated a significant amount. I was there as part of the hospital's development team. We ended up at the same table, and he spent the entire dinner charming everyone, but especially me. "You're not like the other women here," he said when we finally had a moment alone at the bar. "You actually care about the cause, not just the social status of attending." "How do you know I'm not here for the status?" I challenged. "Because you spent 20 minutes talking to that elderly donor about her late husband's battle with Alzheimer's. You weren't networking. You were genuinely interested in her story." He'd noticed. That impressed me more than his expensive watch or his corner office. He'd paid attention. We started dating. He was attentive, romantic, generous. He sent flowers to my office. He remembered small details about my life. He planned thoughtful dates, jazz clubs in Hyde Park, architecture tours along the river, intimate dinners at restaurants I'd mentioned wanting to try. But there was always something just slightly off. Nothing I could put my finger on. Just a feeling. The way he'd check his phone constantly, and then put it face down. The way he'd sometimes zone out when I was talking, like he was somewhere else entirely. The way he never wanted me to come to his house in Winnetka. "It's a mess," he'd say. "I'm not ready for you to see it yet. Let's stick to your place." After 3 months of dating, he finally told me why he was reluctant to have me over. "I have a daughter," he said over dinner at a French restaurant in River North. "Chloe. She's 13. Her mother died 5 years ago." My heart sank. Not because he had a daughter I loved kids, but because he'd hidden this for 3 months. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked carefully. "Because women here, widower with a teenage daughter, and they run. They don't want to deal with the baggage, the grief, the complicated family dynamics. I wanted you to know me first, the real me, before you knew about all the rest." "Rick, I'm a hospital administrator. I deal with grief and complicated situations every day." That wouldn't have scared me off. It scared off the last 3 women I dated. Then they weren't the right women. He looked at me with something like relief. So, you're willing to meet her? To try to be part of her life? Of course. When can I meet her? This weekend. I'll make dinner at my house. Nothing fancy. Just the three of us. That Saturday, I drove to Winnetka for the first time. Rick's house was in a wealthy neighborhood, a beautiful colonial with a manicured lawn and a 3-car garage. Inside, it was exactly what you'd expect from a wealthy widower and his teenage daughter, clean but impersonal, like a house staged for sale rather than lived in. Chloe was in the kitchen when I arrived. She was 13, tall for her age, with long dark hair and her father's sharp features. She was making a salad, methodically chopping vegetables with the precision of someone who'd been cooking for themselves for a long time. "Chloe, this is Monique," Rick said, his hand on the small of my back. Chloe looked up, evaluated me with a glance, and went back to her vegetables. "Eat." "It's nice to meet you, Chloe. Your dad's told me a lot about you." "I'm sure he has." The dinner was awkward. Chloe answered questions in monosyllables. She barely looked at me. She spent most of the meal pushing food around her plate and checking her phone under the table. Typical teenager behavior, I thought. She's protecting herself. She's lost her mother. She's not ready for Dad to be dating. After dinner, Rick walked me to my car. "I'm sorry she was so cold," he said. "She's been through a lot. Lauren's death was traumatic for her. For both of us. She'll warm up. It just takes time. You're patient. I appreciate that." He kissed me goodnight, and I drove home thinking about that dinner. About Chloe's guarded expression. About how she'd flinched slightly when Rick touched her shoulder. About how the house, despite being expensive and well-maintained, felt somehow wrong. But I pushed those thoughts aside. I was overthinking, looking for problems that didn't exist. Rick and I continued dating. I met Chloe regularly, dinners at the house, occasional outings to the movies or shopping. She remained distant but polite. She called me Monique or sometimes Miss Stevens in an oddly formal way. She never opened up, never showed any warmth beyond basic courtesy. "She'll come around," Rick kept saying. "She just needs more time." After a year of dating, Rick proposed. It was romantic, a sunset cruise on Lake Michigan, a string quartet playing, a ring that must have cost more than my car. I said yes, even though that nagging feeling, that sense that something was off, hadn't gone away. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the Chicago Botanic Garden. Chloe was there, of course, wearing a blue dress and a fixed smile that didn't reach her eyes. She stood next to us during the ceremony, officially becoming my stepdaughter. "I'm glad you're part of our family," I told her at the reception. "Thanks," she said, and then excused herself to go to the bathroom. I moved into the Winnetka house after the wedding. It was strange at first, living in what had been Lauren's home. Her presence was still everywhere, in the choice of paint colors, in the layout of the kitchen, in the framed photos on the mantel that Rick had never taken down. "Is it weird for you?" I asked him one night, looking at a photo of Lauren holding baby Chloe. Lauren had been beautiful, blonde, elegant, with a warm smile. Everything I wasn't. A little, Rick admitted. But Lauren would want me to be happy. She'd want Chloe to have a mother figure in her life. I'm not trying to replace her. I know. But Chloe needs someone. She's at a vulnerable age. Teenage girls need guidance. I tried to provide that guidance. I really did. I asked Chloe about school, about her friends, about her interests. I offered to take her shopping, to help with homework, to teach her to drive when she turned 16. She accepted the help politely, but never invited closeness. We coexisted in the same house like cordial roommates, not like family. Give her time, everyone said. My friends, my parents, the therapist I'd started seeing, because I was struggling with the stepmom role. She's grieving. She'll open up eventually. But she didn't. And as months turned into years, I noticed other things. Strange things. Chloe wouldn't be alone with Rick if she could help it. When I went to bed early, she'd go to her room. When I went out with friends, she'd make plans to stay at a friend's house. If I had to travel for work, she'd arrange to stay with her maternal grandmother in Naperville. She's just really social, Rick explained. Always wants to be with her friends. But I'd see her face when Rick would enter a room. The way her body language would shift. The way she'd find an excuse to leave. I also noticed Rick's behavior with Chloe. The way he'd comment on her appearance. That skirt's a bit short, don't you think? Or you're getting so grown up. Soon I won't recognize my little girl. I noticed how he'd insist on driving her to school events, even when I offered. How he'd want to talk to her about her day, alone, without me in the room. How he'd gotten angry the one time I'd suggested Chloe might want to lock her bedroom door for privacy. This is her home, he'd said. She doesn't need to lock doors. We're family. I noticed, but I didn't see. Or maybe I saw, but didn't want to believe what I was seeing. When Chloe was 16, she started spending more time away from the house. She joined every possible after-school activity. She got a part-time job at a bookstore. She volunteered at the library. Anything to not be home. She's avoiding us, I told Rick. She's avoiding you, he corrected. She still hasn't accepted you as her stepmother. It's been 3 years. I thought she'd be over it by now. Maybe we should get family counseling. We don't need counseling. We need Chloe to grow up and accept reality. The tension escalated during Chloe's junior year of high school. She was applying to colleges, and Rick had strong opinions about where she should go. University of Chicago, he'd say. Or maybe Northwestern. Somewhere in the city, close to home. What about Chloe's preferences? I asked. She's 17. She doesn't know what she wants. But Chloe knew exactly what she wanted, as far away from Chicago as possible. She applied to schools on both coasts. Stanford, Berkeley, NYU, Boston University. When her acceptance letters came in, she'd gotten into several excellent programs. I'm going to Stanford, she announced at dinner one night. Rick's face darkened. Stanford is too far. You're going to Northwestern. I've already put down a deposit. You what? Chloe's voice was shaking. You can't just decide where I'm going to college. I'm your father. I'm paying for it.
Y decide.
Then I'll take out loans. I'll figure it out myself. Chloe, I tried to intervene. Stay out of this, Monique, Rick snapped. This is between me and my daughter. Chloe ran upstairs and locked herself in her room. I followed her a few minutes later, knocking gently. Chloe, can we talk? Go away.
Please.
I want to help. A long pause. Then the door opened a crack. Chloe's eyes were red from crying. You can't help, she said. Nobody can. Try me. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in her expression. Something like desperation. Like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. I need to get away from here. Away from this house. Away from... She stopped herself. Away from your dad? Her eyes widened. Just for a second. Then she shut down again. I need to go to Stanford. Please, Monique. Help me convince him. I'll try. But, Chloe, if there's something else going on, something you need to tell me. There's nothing. I just want to go to a good school. That's all. She closed the door. I went downstairs and found Rick in his study, drinking scotch. We need to let her go to Stanford, I said. We do? Since when do you make decisions about my daughter? She's my stepdaughter. I care about her. And she clearly needs to go to Stanford, for reasons she won't or can't explain. She's being dramatic. She'll go to Northwestern and she'll thank me for it later. Rick, something's wrong. Haven't you noticed? The way she avoids being home. The way she's desperate to leave. Something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. She's just ungrateful. I've given her everything. A beautiful home. Every opportunity. The best schools. And this is how she repays me. By wanting to run away. Maybe she's not running away from you. Maybe she's running away from something. Like what? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. But I felt it. The same feeling I'd had when we first started dating. That something was off. In the end, Rick compromised. Chloe could go to Northwestern instead of Stanford, but she had to live in the dorms, not at home. He framed it as a punishment. If she wants independence so badly, she can have it. But I could see the relief on Chloe's face. Living in the dorms meant not living with us. With him. During Chloe's senior year of high school, before she left for Northwestern, I tried one more time to connect with her. I took her out for coffee, just the two of us, at a cafe near her school. Chloe, I know we've never been close. And I know you lost your mom, and that's something I could never replace. But I want you to know that if you ever need to talk about anything at all, I'm here.
No judgment.
No telling your dad unless you want me to. Just. I'm here. She stirred her latte, not looking at me. Thanks. I mean it. If something is bothering you, if there's something you're afraid to say, you can trust me. She looked up then, and I saw tears in her eyes. I want to. I really want to. But I can't. Why not? Because, she stopped herself. Because you wouldn't believe me. Nobody would believe me. Try me. She shook her head. When I'm 18. When I'm away at school. When I'm safe. Maybe then. Safe? Chloe, safe from what? But she was already gathering her things. I have to go. Thanks for the coffee. She left me sitting there, my mind racing. Safe from what? What was she so afraid of? I should have pushed harder. I should have demanded answers. But I didn't. Because part of me was afraid of what those answers might be. Part of me didn't want to know. Chloe moved into her dorm at Northwestern in August. She was technically only 25 miles away from our house, but she might as well have been across the country. She rarely came home. She made excuses, studying, club activities, hanging out with friends. The few times she did visit, she was never alone with Rick. Always brought a friend. Always had an escape route. Rick was hurt by her distance. She's shutting me out, he'd complain. After everything I've done for her, this is how she treats me. I tried to be supportive, but that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for years, and I'd been too blind, too willfully ignorant to see it. Then came the phone call. It was a Friday night in October. Chloe had been at Northwestern for 2 months. Rick was at a business dinner. I was home alone, reading in bed, when my phone rang at 11:47 p.m.
Chloe.
Hello.
Sobbing.
Desperate, gasping sobs. Chloe? What's wrong? Are you hurt? Mom, I mean Monique. I can't.
Slow down. Breathe.
Tell me what's wrong. I need to tell you something. About Dad. Something he made me promise never to say. My blood went cold. What about your dad? More sobbing. I can't say it on the phone. Can you come here? To my dorm? Please? Right now. Of course. I'm on my way. Stay on the phone with me. I was already out of bed, grabbing my keys, heading for the garage. I'm sorry, Chloe was saying. I'm so sorry I never told you. I wanted to. So many times. But he said no one would believe me. He said everyone would think I was lying. He said, Chloe, whatever it is, I believe you. Just stay where you are. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I drove to Evanston faster than I should have, my hands shaking on the wheel, my mind going to dark places I didn't want it to go. What had Rick done? What had he been doing all this time while I lived in the same house? Oblivious? Chloe was waiting outside her dorm building when I arrived. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the composed 18-year-old who'd left for college 2 months ago. She got in my car and immediately started crying again. Tell me, I said, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. Tell me everything. And she did. It started when I was 10, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Right after Mom died. I didn't understand it at first. I thought it was normal. Fathers being affectionate with their daughters. I felt my stomach turn. What did he do? At first, it was just comments. About how I looked, how I was growing up, how pretty I was becoming. He'd want me to sit on his lap during movie nights, even when I got too old for that. He'd want to tuck me in at night, even when I was 13, 14, 15. Chloe. And then it got worse. He'd come into my room without knocking. Walk in while I was changing. Say it was an accident, but it happened too many times to be accidents. He'd want me to model clothes for him. Want to take pictures of me, to remember how I looked at each age. He'd touch my hair, my face, my shoulders. Always just slightly inappropriate, but never quite crossing a line I could point to and say, that's wrong. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. Why didn't you tell someone? Who would I tell? He's my father. He's respected. Successful. A pillar of the community. And what would I say? My dad tells me I'm pretty? My dad takes pictures of me? My dad walks into my room without knocking? None of it sounds that bad when you say it out loud. That's what made it so hard. He was careful. Always careful to stay just this side of deniability. What about your mother? Did she know? Chloe's face crumpled. She knew. Toward the end, before she got really sick, she knew.
She confronted him about it.
I heard them fighting in their bedroom one night. She was screaming at him, calling him sick, saying she'd take me and leave. And he was telling her she was crazy, that she was seeing things that weren't there because of the cancer medication. And then she died. Chloe looked at me with haunted eyes. 3 weeks after that fight, the doctors said it was the cancer, that it had spread faster than they expected. But Monique, she was getting better. The treatments were working. And then suddenly she wasn't. Suddenly she was gone. The implications of what she was saying hit me like a physical blow. You think? I don't know. I was only 10. But I remember Mom being so sure she was going to beat it. She was making plans for after treatment, talking about taking me to Disney World, about going back to work. And then she was dead. Did anyone investigate? Why would they? She had terminal cancer. When cancer patients die, nobody questions it. But Monique, the look on Dad's face at her funeral, he wasn't sad. He was relieved. I sat there in my car in the Northwestern parking lot, processing what I was hearing. My husband, the man I'd shared a bed with for 5 years. Had he been abusing his daughter this whole time? Had he possibly murdered his first wife? After Mom died, it got worse, Chloe continued. Without her there to protect me, to watch him, he had free rein. The comments became more explicit. The touching became more frequent. He'd insist on helping me shower until I was 12, saying I couldn't wash my hair properly by myself. He'd want to apply sunscreen on me in places I could reach myself. He'd want to see what I was wearing before I left the house, make me change if it was too revealing, but then suggest things that were actually more revealing. Did he ever? I couldn't finish the question. Rape me?
No.
He never went that far. It's like he knew that was the line. As long as he didn't cross that specific line, he could maintain deniability. But Monique, there are other ways to violate someone. Other ways to make them feel unsafe in their own body. Other ways to steal their childhood. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have. How could you have seen it? He's a master at hiding it. He's been doing this for years, probably longer than just with me. And when you came along, he got even better at hiding it because he had to. He couldn't let you see what he was doing. Is that why you wanted to go to Stanford? To get away from him?
Yes.
I thought if I could just get far enough away, across the country, I'd be safe. But he wouldn't let me. Even Northwestern felt too close. Like he still had access to me. You're safe now. You're in the dorms. You don't have to go back to that house. But you do. You're still married to him. You're still in danger. I'm not his daughter. I'm not. Monique, don't you see? He doesn't just abuse children. He abuses anyone he has power over. My mother figured that out. She started noticing other things too. Money missing from accounts. Strange phone calls. Late nights at the office. She was going to leave him and take me with her. And then she died. The pieces were falling into place. A picture I didn't want to see, but couldn't look away from. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Why tonight? Because he called me earlier today. Said he wanted to have dinner tomorrow night. Just the two of us. Said you were going to be out of town for a conference, and he thought it would be good for us to reconnect. He wanted me to come to the house. I'm not going out of town tomorrow. I know. I checked your Facebook. You posted about plans to go to a concert with your friends. So, why would he tell me you were going out of town unless he was lying? Unless he wanted to get me alone in that house. I'll cancel. I'll be there. That's not the point. The point is he's still trying.
I'm 18.
I'm in college. I'm supposed to be free of him. But he's still trying to control me, to have access to me. And I realized I can't just run away and hope it stops. I have to stop him. And I need your help to do it. I looked at my stepdaughter, this brave, damaged girl who'd been living with a secret for 8 years, and I made a decision. Tell me what you need me to do. Tell me what you need me to do, I said. Chloe wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her Northwestern sweatshirt. I need you to help me gather evidence. Real, undeniable evidence. Because if I go to the police now with just my word against his, nothing will happen. He's too respected.
Too wealthy.
Too connected. They'll say I'm making it up, that I'm an attention-seeking teenager with daddy issues. She was right. I knew she was right. The system failed survivors all the time, especially when the abuser was someone like Rick, successful, charismatic, with no prior record. What kind of evidence? I asked. Recordings. Documentation. Proof of his behavior. And maybe proof about Mom too. Because if he did kill her, if he somehow caused her death or accelerated it, that changes everything. Murder doesn't have a statute of limitations. Your mother's death was 8 years ago. How would we even begin to investigate that? Her medical records. The timeline of her decline. Who had access to her medications? Mom kept journals too, detailed ones about her treatment, her symptoms, everything. Dad made me throw them away after she died, but I didn't. I hid them. They're in a storage unit I rented with money from my part-time job last year. This girl, this brave, strategic, forward-thinking girl, had been planning this for years. Where do we start? I asked. With you. He doesn't know I've told you. He thinks you're still under his spell. You have access to the house, to his study, to his computer. You can look for things I never could. What am I looking for? Anything. Financial records that show where his money goes. Emails or messages to other women. He had affairs during his marriage to Mom. I know he did. Evidence of the fake business dinner he told me about tomorrow. Photos or videos he might have on his devices. Anything that shows a pattern of manipulation or abuse. I thought about the man I'd married. The man who slept next to me every night. Could I really go through his things? Spy on him? Betray his trust? But then I looked at Chloe's face. This girl who'd lived in fear for 8 years, who'd been systematically abused by someone who was supposed to protect her, and I knew there was no question. I'll do it, I said. But Chloe, we need to be smart about this. If he finds out we're investigating him, if he feels threatened, I don't know what he'll do. That's why you have to act completely normal. Like nothing has changed. Like I never called you tonight. Where does he think you are right now? I told him I was studying late at the library. He doesn't know I called you. And tomorrow's dinner? I'll say I can't make it, that I have a project due. He'll be annoyed, but he won't push too hard if he thinks you'll be home. I'm canceling my concert plans. I'm staying home tomorrow night.
No.
Go to the concert. Let him think he has the house to himself. I'll have a friend call me with a fake emergency right before I'm supposed to leave for the house. That way I have an excuse to cancel last minute. And you being gone gives him confidence. Makes him think I'm lying about why I can't come over. She'd thought of everything. 8 years of survival had turned her into a strategist. Okay. But Chloe, promise me something. If at any point you feel unsafe, you call me. Immediately. And you don't go anywhere near that house without telling me first. I promise. I drove back to Winnetka at 1:30 a.m., my mind racing. Rick was home by then. His car was in the garage. I parked and sat in my car for a moment, composing myself. I needed to be normal. Casual. Like I'd just been out late with friends, not having a life-changing conversation with his abuse victim daughter. I found him in the kitchen, making a sandwich. Hey, he said, looking up. I didn't hear you come in. Where have you been? Couldn't sleep. Went for a drive. At midnight. Sometimes I need to clear my head. Work stress. He seemed to accept this. Why wouldn't he? I'd never given him a reason not to trust me. I was the good wife, the accommodating stepmother, the woman who'd overlooked every red flag because I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. Chloe called earlier, he said casually, taking a bite of his sandwich. She's coming over for dinner tomorrow night. Just her and me. I thought it would be good for us to spend some quality time together without, he paused. Without me. I finished. I was going to say, without the usual distractions. But since you'll be at that concert anyway, it works out perfectly. I felt sick.
He was planning this.
Setting it up, and he had no idea I knew. That's nice, I said, keeping my voice neutral. She doesn't come home much. It'll be good for you two to reconnect. Exactly what I thought. I went upstairs, got ready for bed, and climbed in next to my husband, the man who'd been abusing his daughter for 8 years. He reached for me, pulled me close, kissed my shoulder. Love you, he murmured. Love you too, I said, and it was the first time those words felt like ash in my mouth. The next morning, I waited until Rick left for work. Then I went into his study. Rick's study was his sanctuary, a room I'd been explicitly told was off limits. I need a space that's just mine, he'd said when I moved in. Somewhere I can work without distraction. I'd respected that. Never questioned it. Never even peeked inside when he wasn't home. Now I stood in the doorway, looking at the mahogany desk, the leather chair, the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and I wondered what secrets were hiding in this room. I started with the desk. The drawers were locked, but I found the key in his briefcase, which he'd left at home because he was taking a client to lunch and didn't want to carry it. Small miracles. The first drawer contained files, insurance documents, investment portfolios, tax returns. Nothing unusual. The second drawer had office supplies. The third drawer had a false bottom. I almost missed it, but as I was pulling out a stack of papers, I noticed the drawer seemed too shallow compared to the others. I pressed on the bottom, and it clicked. A hidden compartment opened. Inside were three things: a burner phone, a small notebook, and a flash drive. I turned on the burner phone. It had texts.
Dozens of them.
To a number saved as J. Can't wait to see you tonight. You looked incredible yesterday. My wife doesn't understand me like you do. The texts went back months. Some were explicitly sexual. Some were making plans to meet. The most recent was from 3 days ago. Wednesday at the usual place. 7 p.m. Wednesday. The day Rick said he had a late meeting at work. The day he came home at 11 p.m. smelling like perfume. So he was having an affair. That almost seemed mundane compared to the abuse allegations. But it was evidence of a pattern of deception, of living a double life. I photographed every text. Then I opened the notebook. It was an accounting ledger, but not for his legitimate business. These were payments. Cash payments. Thousands of dollars at a time. To people with initials only. MC, $3,000. RP, 5000. LW, $2.5. What were these payments for? I photographed every page. Then I plugged the flash drive into his computer. It took a moment to load. When it did, I saw folders. Hundreds of folders. Each labeled with a woman's first name or initials and a year. My hands were shaking as I clicked on one. Sarah, 2019. Photos. Dozens of photos of a young woman I didn't recognize. Some were innocent, her at a restaurant, at a park. But others were taken without her knowledge. Through windows. In parking garages. Walking to her car. I clicked on another folder. Jennifer, 2018. Same thing.
Surveillance photo.
Some innocent. Some clearly taken without consent. There were 17 folders total. 17 women over the past 10 years. Women he'd been watching, following, photographing. I felt bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just abuse of his daughter. This was a pattern of predatory behavior, of stalking, of obsession. And then I saw the folder labeled Lauren, 2010. My husband's dead wife. I clicked it open. There were photos of Lauren, but they were different from the others. These weren't surveillance photos. These were photos of her when she was sick, in the hospital,
Weak.
unconscious. And in several photos, Rick was visible in the frame, standing next to her, his hand near the line. One photo had a timestamp, 3 days before she died. I stared at that photo for a long time. At Rick's face. At his expression. It wasn't grief. It wasn't concern. It was something else. Something calculating. I photographed everything on that flash drive. Every folder. Every image. It took me 2 hours, and every minute I expected to hear Rick's car pulling into the garage, to hear his footsteps on the stairs. But he didn't come home. I finished, put everything back exactly as I'd found it, locked the drawers, and went to my own computer to upload everything to a secure cloud storage. Then I called Chloe. I found something, I said. A lot of somethings. We need to talk. Can you come to the house? Rick won't be home until after 6. I'll be there in an hour. When Chloe arrived, I showed her everything. The texts to Jay. The ledger with the mysterious payments. The folders of photos. The image of Rick next to Lauren's 4. She started crying when she saw the photo of her mother. He did kill her, she whispered. I knew it. I knew it wasn't just the cancer. We need to take this to the police. This is evidence of stalking at minimum. Possibly murder. Not yet. They'll say the photos don't prove anything. That he was her husband, that he had every right to be in her hospital room. That the surveillance of other women could be explained away. Maybe he was suspicious they were having affairs. Or maybe he hired a PI, and these are the PI's photos. So, what do? We need more. We need something undeniable. We need him to confess, or we need evidence that directly links him to Mom's death. How do we get that? By making him think he's safe. By making him think he still has power. And then we record him. Over the next week, I played the role of the oblivious wife perfectly. I went to work. I made dinners. I smiled and kissed Rick goodnight. I acted like everything was normal. Meanwhile, Chloe and I were building our case. She showed me her mother's journals, detailed accounts of Lauren's cancer treatment, her symptoms, her medications. In the last weeks before her death, Lauren had written about feeling worse suddenly, about new symptoms that didn't match her cancer, about how Rick had insisted on managing all her medications, not letting the hospice nurses help. He was poisoning her, Chloe said, adding something to her medications, making her sicker. We need to prove that. Can we exhume her body? Get an autopsy? That requires a court order. And we'd need probable cause. The photos aren't enough? Not without context. We need more. I also hired a private investigator, a woman named Sharon Hayes who specialized in domestic abuse cases. I gave her the name and number from Rick's burner phone, asked her to find out who Jay was. She called me back 2 days later. Her name is Julia Morrison. She's 23. Works as a paralegal at a law firm downtown. She's been seeing your husband for about 4 months. 23. The same age as some of the women in Rick's photo folders. Can you find the other women? I asked. The ones in the photos? I can try. It'll take time. But Maya, you need to be careful. A man who stalks multiple women, who has this kind of secretive behavior, who may have killed his first wife. That's a dangerous man. If he finds out you're investigating him, I know. I'm being careful. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're living with a predator. She was right. I was. Every night, I went to sleep next to a man who might be a murderer, who definitely was an abuser, who had folders of women he'd stalked, photographed, possibly harmed. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. Not until we had enough evidence to make sure he'd go to prison. Because if I left and we didn't have solid proof, he'd just find his next victim. He'd find another woman to manipulate, another daughter to abuse. 2 weeks after Chloe's midnight call, Rick announced he was going out of town for business. Chicago to New York, he said. Thursday through Sunday. Big client meeting on Friday. I'll be staying at the Mandarin Oriental. That's a long trip for one meeting. There are some networking events too. You know how it is. I did know how it was. It was a lie. Just like everything else about him was a lie. After he left Thursday morning, I called Sharon. Can you follow him to New York? See what he's really doing there. Already on it. I had a feeling he wasn't going for business. Friday evening, Sharon sent me photos. Rick at a restaurant in Manhattan. With Julia, his 23-year-old mistress. They were holding hands across the table, looking at each other like lovers, playing house in a city where no one knew them. But more importantly, Sharon had gotten into his hotel room while he was at dinner. She'd planted a recording device, a tiny bug that would capture everything said in that room. I know it's not admissible in court, she told me. But you said you needed to know what he's really like, what he's capable of. This will tell you. Saturday night, Sharon sent me the audio file. Be prepared, she warned. It's bad. I waited until I was alone in the house. Then I put in my headphones and pressed play. Rick's voice. Julia's voice. Intimate sounds. And then in the aftermath, talking. Does your wife know about me? Julia asked. Of course not. And she never will. Maya is simple. Trusting. She believes everything I tell her. Simple. Trusting. Is that how he saw me? Don't you feel bad? Lying to her. Why should I feel bad? I give her a good life. A nice house. Financial security. That's what women like her want. They don't care about fidelity as long as the lifestyle continues. What about your daughter? Does she know? Chloe? Chloe is complicated. She's always been too smart for her own good. Too observant. She was getting in the way toward the end there, before she left for college. Always watching me. Always judging. In the way of what? Of my freedom. My ability to live my life how I want. Her mother was the same way. Always monitoring, always suspicious. That's why I had to. He stopped himself. Had to what? Julia prompted. Nothing. Never mind. Let's not talk about depressing things. Let's talk about us. About our future. Do we have a future? I mean, you're married. Not for much longer. I'm working on an exit strategy. Maya's becoming a liability. Too many questions. Too much attention to details. I might need to simplify my life. Simplify his life. The same phrase he'd used about Lauren. The recording continued.
More intimate sounds.
More conversation. But I'd heard enough. That partial confession. That's why I had to. Combined with everything else we'd gathered, it was enough to take to the police. I called Chloe immediately. We have him. We have enough. Are you sure? I'm sure. It's time to go to the police. Okay.
But Maya?
Be careful. He gets back tomorrow. Don't let him know you know. I won't. I promise. Sunday evening, Rick came home from his business trip. He kissed me on the cheek, told me he'd missed me, complained about the client meeting being tedious. How was your weekend? He asked. Quiet. Caught up on some reading. Talked to Chloe a bit. How is she? Good. Adjusting to college well. That's good. That's good. I worry about her, you know. Out there on her own. I looked at my husband, this man who claimed to worry about his daughter while having spent years abusing her, and I smiled. I know you do, I said. You're such a good father. The words tasted like poison in my mouth, but I smiled through them. Because tomorrow, Monday morning, Chloe and I had an appointment at the Chicago Police Department with a detective who specialized in cold cases and suspicious deaths. That night, lying next to Rick, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything we'd uncovered. The affair with Julia. The 17 women in those photo folders. The ledger with mysterious payments. Lauren's journals. The recording from New York. The incomplete confession. But mostly I kept thinking about Chloe. About that 10-year-old girl who just lost her mother and needed her father to protect her. Instead, he'd preyed on her. Violated her trust in the most fundamental way. Made her question her own perception of reality. And I'd been living with him for 5 years, completely oblivious. Sleeping next to him, cooking his meals, laughing at his jokes, believing his lies. How had I missed it? How had I not seen?
But I knew how.
Because Rick was a master manipulator. He showed different faces to different people. To his colleagues, he was the successful banker. To his friends, he was the devoted father. To me, he was the charming husband. To Chloe, he was the predator. And he'd been so careful. Always staying just this side of legal. Always maintaining plausible deniability. Always having an explanation ready. That's what made this so hard. That's what made gathering evidence so crucial. Because men like Rick don't confess easily. They don't leave obvious trails. They're smart, strategic, calculating. But they're also arrogant. And arrogance leads to mistakes. The next morning, I told Rick I was taking a personal day. Some errands to run, I said. Nothing exciting. That's fine. I'll probably be late anyway. Big presentation. After he left, I drove to Evanston to pick up Chloe. She'd skipped her morning classes. This is more important, she'd said when I texted her. We drove to the police station in silence. Chloe was gripping her mother's journals in her lap like they were a lifeline. Are you ready for this? I asked as I parked. I've been ready for 8 years. Detective Maria Santos met us in an interview room. She was in her 40s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She specialized in historic sexual abuse cases and suspicious deaths. Thank you for coming in, she said, shaking both our hands. I understand you have information about a potential abuse situation and possibly a suspicious death? Chloe nodded. My father sexually abused me for 8 years, starting when I was 10 years old. And I believe he murdered my mother. Detective Santos didn't react with shock or disbelief. She just pulled out a notepad and pen. Let's start at the beginning.
Take your time.
Tell me everything. Chloe told her story. All of it. Every inappropriate comment. Every unwanted touch. Every violation of her privacy. Every moment of fear. 8 years condensed into an hour-long testimony. I watched Detective Santos taking notes, her face remaining professionally neutral, but I could see the anger in the set of her jaw. When Chloe finished, Detective Santos set down her pen. That took incredible courage. Thank you for trusting me with your story. Now, I need to be honest with you about what happens next. The abuse allegations are going to be difficult to prosecute because they happened over a period of years when you were a minor and there's no physical evidence. That doesn't mean I don't believe you, I do. But proving it in court will be challenging. I know, Chloe said quietly. That's why we brought other evidence. I handed Detective Santos my phone with all the photos I'd taken. The burner phone texts, the ledger, the surveillance photos of 17 women, the photo of Rick standing next to Lauren's 4. Detective Santos scrolled through them slowly. Her expression changed.
Hardened.
Where did you get these? From my husband's study. From a hidden compartment in his desk. And he doesn't know you have copies?
No.
I was very careful to put everything back exactly as I found it.
Good.
Because if he finds out you've been investigating him, she paused. Are you still living with him?
Yes.
I need to maintain the appearance of normalcy until we can build a case. That's extremely dangerous, Mrs. Stevens. A man with this kind of profile, this pattern of secretive behavior, stalking, potential murder, if he feels threatened, if he thinks you're going to expose him, there's no telling what he might do. I know. But if I leave before we have solid evidence, he'll just destroy everything. He'll find a way to wriggle free. I can't let that happen. Detective Santos studied me for a long moment. You're very brave, both of you, and I'm going to do everything I can to help. But I need more time to investigate. I need to track down these other women in the photos, see if any of them filed reports. I need to review Lauren Stevens' medical records and death certificate. I need to build a comprehensive case. How long will that take?
Weeks.
Maybe months. Can you maintain your cover that long? I thought about going home every night to a predator. About smiling and pretending everything was normal. About sleeping next to a man who might be a murderer. I can do it, I said. And there's one more thing, Detective Santos continued. The recording you mentioned from the New York hotel room. Can I hear it? I pulled out my phone and played the audio file. Detective Santos listened carefully, her expression darkening when Rick said, "That's why I had to," before cutting himself off. That's suggestive but not a confession, she said when it ended. But combined with everything else, it builds a pattern. It shows consciousness of guilt. It helps. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to officially reopen Lauren Stevens' death as a suspicious death investigation. I'm going to request a court order to exhume her body for an independent autopsy. I'm going to interview these other women. I'm going to look into these payments in the ledger. And I'm going to start building a case for stalking, harassment, and potentially murder. What about the abuse?
Chloe asked.
What happens with that? That's trickier because of the statute of limitations. But if we can establish a pattern of predatory behavior, if we can show he's been abusing his power and authority with multiple victims, it strengthens the overall case. It shows character. It shows motive. And Chloe, even if we can't criminally prosecute for what he did to you, your testimony will be crucial in any trial. So you believe me? I believe you completely. And I promise you, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure your father faces consequences for what he did.
To you.
To your mother. To anyone else he's hurt. Chloe started crying. Not from sadness, but from relief. Someone believed her. Someone in authority, someone who could actually do something, believed her. I put my arm around my stepdaughter, this brave girl who'd survived hell, and I made a silent promise. No matter what happened, no matter how dangerous it got, I would see this through. For Chloe, for Lauren, for all the women in those photo folders. Detective Santos gave us her direct number. If anything happens, if you feel unsafe at any point, you call me immediately.
Day or night.
I mean it. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me yet. We have a long road ahead. And Mrs. Stevens? Be careful. Don't do anything that might make him suspicious. Don't change your routine. Don't ask him questions. Just be the wife he thinks you are. I can do that. As Chloe and I drove away from the police station, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks.
Hope.
Real, tangible hope that this nightmare might actually end. That Rick might actually face justice. What happens now?
Chloe asked.
Now we wait. We let Detective Santos do her investigation. And we keep playing our parts. How long do you think it will take? I don't know. But however long it takes, we see it through. Chloe reached over and squeezed my hand. Thank you. For believing me. For helping me. For being the mother my mom couldn't be anymore. My eyes filled with tears. You don't have to thank me. This is what family does. Real family. That evening, I went home and made dinner like always. Rick came home at 7 like always. We ate together like always. We watched TV like always. Everything was normal, except everything had changed. Because now I knew Detective Santos was out there, investigating, building a case, interviewing witnesses, requesting court orders. And Rick had no idea.
He thought he was safe.
Thought he'd gotten away with it all. Thought his secrets were still secret. But they weren't. And soon, very soon, his entire carefully constructed life was going to come crashing down. I just had to survive long enough to see it happen. 3 weeks. That's how long I had to live with Rick while Detective Santos built her case. 3 weeks of smiling at breakfast. 3 weeks of kissing him goodnight. 3 weeks of pretending I didn't know what kind of monster slept beside me. Those 3 weeks aged me. I could see it in the mirror. New lines around my eyes, gray hairs I'd never noticed before. The stress of maintaining the performance while knowing what I knew was eating me alive. But I did it. For Chloe. For Lauren. For all those women in the photo folders. Detective Santos called me every few days with updates. She'd tracked down 6 of the 17 women from the photos. 3 had restraining orders against Rick from years ago, filed, then mysteriously dropped. 2 had reported him for stalking but never pressed charges. 1 had moved across the country to get away from him. Every single one of them has a story, Detective Santos told me. And every story follows the same pattern. He met them through work or social events. He pursued them relentlessly. When they rejected him or tried to break things off, he became obsessive, following them, showing up at their workplaces, taking photos. Why didn't anyone stop him? Because he's rich. Because he's connected. Because he hired expensive lawyers who made the women's lives hell if they tried to fight back. Eventually, they all just gave up, moved on, tried to forget. What about the court order for Lauren's exhumation? It came through yesterday. The exhumation is scheduled for this Friday. We'll have preliminary autopsy results within a week. Friday. 4 days away. I just had to maintain the act for 4 more days. But Rick was getting suspicious. I could feel it. The way he watched me at dinner. The way he'd ask casual questions about my day, listening too carefully to the answers. The way he'd check to see if anything in his study had been moved. You seem distracted lately, he said one evening. We were having dinner, grilled salmon and asparagus, his favorite. Is everything okay at work? Just busy. Budget season. You know how it is. Maybe you should take some time off. You've been working too hard. Maybe after the budget is finalized. He reached across the table and took my hand. I worry about you. You're not yourself lately. I looked at my husband, the man who'd killed his first wife, abused his daughter, stalked 17 women, and I smiled.
I'm fine, Rick.
Really? Just tired. If something was bothering you, you'd tell me, right? We don't keep secrets from each other. The irony of that statement nearly made me laugh. Of course.
No secrets.
He squeezed my hand. Good. Because I love you, Monique. You know that, right? You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I wanted to vomit, but instead I said, I love you too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Rick listening to him breathe, and I thought about Lauren. Had she known what he was? In those last weeks before she died, when she'd confronted him about his behavior with Chloe, when she'd threatened to leave, had she known she was in danger? The journals suggested she had. In one of the final entries, Lauren had written, if something happens to me, if I don't survive this cancer, someone needs to look into R's behavior. Someone needs to protect Chloe. I'm afraid of what he'll do when I'm gone. I'm afraid I won't be here to stop him. She'd known. And she'd been right to be afraid. Thursday morning, Detective Santos called with urgent news. We have a problem. Rick hired a private investigator. The PI's been following you. My blood went cold.
What?
Since when? At least a week, maybe longer. We only just found out because one of my officers spotted the tail. Mrs. Stevens, I think Rick suspects something. You need to be extremely careful. Has the PI seen me meeting with you? We don't think so. We've been very careful about where and when we meet. But he knows you've been to Evanston multiple times. He knows you've been taking personal days from work. He's trying to figure out what you're doing. What should I do? Act natural. If he confronts you, have a cover story ready. And Mrs. Stevens? The exhumation is tomorrow. Once that happens, once we start the autopsy, there's no putting this genie back in the bottle. If Rick finds out we're investigating Lauren's death, if he feels cornered, I understand.
Do you?
Because men like Rick, when they feel threatened, they become unpredictable, dangerous. You need to have an exit strategy. Somewhere safe you can go if things escalate. I'll stay with my friend Sarah. She lives in Lincoln Park. Good. Keep a bag packed. Keep your car keys accessible. And if Rick shows any signs of aggression, any indication that he knows what's happening, you get out of that house immediately. Do you understand? I understand. That evening, Rick came home late, 10 p.m. He'd said he had a dinner meeting, but when he walked in, I could smell perfume. Julia's perfume. I'd smelled it on his clothes enough times to recognize it. How was your meeting? I asked from the couch where I'd been reading. Productive. He loosened his tie, poured himself a scotch. How was your day? Quiet. Caught up on some paperwork from home. He sat down next to me, closer than usual. Monique, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. My heart started racing, but I kept my expression neutral. Of course. Where were you last Tuesday afternoon? Last Tuesday. The day I'd met Detective Santos at a coffee shop in Evanston to review the evidence against him. I went shopping. Nordstrom. I needed some new work clothes. What did you buy? Think fast. A blazer. Navy blue. And a pair of black pants. Why? Just curious. I noticed you'd taken a personal day. Wanted to make sure you were taking care of yourself, not overworking. He was testing me, seeing if I'd slip, if I'd reveal that I knew about the PI. That's sweet, but I'm fine. Really? Are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me? Nothing you're keeping from me? I looked directly into his eyes. What would I be keeping from you? He studied my face for a long moment. Then he smiled. Nothing. I'm just being paranoid. Work stress. You know how it is. I do know. He kissed my forehead. I'm going to take a shower. Why don't you come upstairs with me? It was a test. He wanted to see if I'd still be intimate with him if I was pulling away. I swallowed my revulsion and smiled. Give me 10 minutes. I want to finish this chapter. Don't take too long. After he went upstairs, I texted Detective Santos. He's suspicious. Asking questions about Tuesday. What should I do? Her response came quickly. Stick to your cover story. Don't panic. Exhumation is tomorrow morning. Once that's done, we can move quickly. Hang in there. I went upstairs. I played the role of the devoted wife one more time. And I hated myself for it. But I'd come too far to give up now. Friday morning, I woke up knowing that somewhere in Cook County, Lauren's grave was being opened. Her body was being removed. An independent pathologist was beginning the examination that would finally reveal the truth about her death. Rick was already awake, getting dressed for work. Big day, he said. Quarterly review with the partners. Might be late. Good luck. After he left, I called Detective Santos. The exhumation. Is it happening? It's happening right now. The pathologist will do a preliminary examination today, full toxicology screening over the next week. But Monique, there's something else. We got a warrant to search Rick's office. We're executing it this afternoon. Why his office? Because the ledger you found, the one with the mysterious payments, we traced some of them. They're payments to Julia Morrison. Large cash payments over the past 4 months. We think he's been paying her to stay quiet about something. Maybe about his relationship with her. Maybe about something else he told her. You think Julia knows what he did to Lauren? We think she might. We're bringing her in for questioning this afternoon. And Monique, once we search his office, once we question Julia, Rick is going to know something's happening. You need to not be in that house when he finds out. I'll go to my friend Sarah's. I'll pack a bag right now. Good. And Monique? It's almost over. We're close. After I hung up, I started packing. Clothes, toiletries, important documents, my laptop. I was throwing things into a suitcase when my phone rang.
Rick.
Hey, I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. Where are you? His voice was sharp, angry.
Home.
Why? The police are in my office. They have a warrant. They're going through everything. Did you know about this?
What? No.
Why would I know about that? Because someone told them to look into me. Someone gave them information. Was it you, Monique? Rick, I don't know what you're talking about. Why would the police be investigating you? Don't lie to me. He was shouting now. I know you've been sneaking around. I know you've been to Evanston. I know you've been asking questions. What did you do? I'd never heard him like this. Out of control. Unmasked. Rick, calm down. Let's talk about this when you get home. I'm coming home now. Don't you dare leave that house.
We need to talk. Now.
He hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, heart pounding. He was coming home. And he was angry. Angrier than I'd ever seen him. I called Detective Santos. Rick knows. He's coming to the house. What do I do? Get out.
Right now.
Grab what you can and leave. I'm sending a patrol car to your location. What about Chloe? What if he goes after her? We have officers at Northwestern already. We anticipated this. Chloe is safe. Now you need to get safe. I grabbed my suitcase and ran down the stairs. My car keys were in my purse by the door. I was reaching for them when I heard it. A car in the driveway. Rick's car. He was already here. I looked at the front door. At the garage door. Both were visible from where his car was parked. If I tried to leave, he'd see me. He'd stop me. I ran back upstairs, locked myself in the guest bedroom, and called 911. 911. What's your emergency? My husband, he's dangerous. He's coming into the house. I think he might hurt me. What's your address? I gave it to them. Please hurry. He's here. I heard the front door slam open. Heard Rick's footsteps in the foyer.
Monique.
Where are you? I pressed the phone to my ear, whispered to the dispatcher. He's in the house. I'm locked in the upstairs guest bedroom. Please send someone. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line with me. Do not open the door. Rick's footsteps came up the stairs. Monique. I know you're here. Your car is in the garage. He tried the master bedroom first. Then his study. Then he was outside the guest bedroom door. Monique, open this door. We need to talk. Rick, please. Just calm down. Let's talk about this later, when you're not upset. I'm not upset.
I'm furious. You betrayed me.
After everything I've given you, everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? By calling the police? By investigating me? I didn't call the police, Rick. Liar. Who else would have? Who else has access to my study? To my files? You went through my things. You stole from me. I didn't steal anything. Open this door right now, or I swear to God.
Bang.
He kicked the door. It shuddered but held. Sir, the 911 dispatcher said in my ear. Officers are 2 minutes away. Stay where you are.
Bang.
Another kick. The door frame was splintering. Rick, stop. You're scaring me. I should scare you. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've ruined everything. My career. My reputation. My life.
Bang.
The door cracked. They're going to arrest me, Monique. Because of you. Because you couldn't just mind your own business. Because you had to go snooping, had to dig up the past, had to believe whatever lies Chloe told you. He knew. He knew Chloe had talked to me. Chloe didn't lie, Rick. I saw the photos. I heard the recording. I know what you did to her. I know what you did to Lauren. Silence on the other side of the door. Then, quietly. So that's it. Chloe told you. My own daughter betrayed me. She's not the one who betrayed anyone. You did. You abused her. For years. You killed your wife. You. I loved my wife. His scream was primal. Unhinged. I loved Lauren more than anything. She was going to leave me. She was going to take Chloe. She was going to destroy everything I'd built. I had no choice. There it was. The confession I'd needed. And the 911 dispatcher was recording every word. Sir, Officers are pulling up to your house now, the dispatcher said. Stay calm. They're coming. I heard sirens outside, heard car doors slamming. Rick, the police are here. Please just stop. Don't make this worse. But he kicked the door again. Harder. The lock gave way. The door flew open. Rick stood in the doorway, his face twisted with rage and something else. Desperation. He looked like a cornered animal. You've ruined everything, he said. Everything. Chicago police. We're coming upstairs. A voice from below. Rick looked at me, then at the stairs, then back at me. For a moment, I thought he might rush me, might try to hurt me before the police could stop him. But instead, he did something I didn't expect. He started crying. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he said, his voice breaking. I just wanted a family. A normal family. Is that so wrong? You didn't want a family, Rick. You wanted control. There's a difference. Sir, hands where we can see them. 2 officers appeared at the top of the stairs, guns drawn. Rick raised his hands slowly. The fight went out of him. He looked small suddenly. Pathetic. Richard Stevens, you're under arrest, one of the officers said, moving forward with handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. I watched them cuff my husband. Read him his rights. Let him down the stairs. And I felt nothing.
No sadness.
No relief. Just emptiness. Detective Santos arrived as they were putting Rick in the patrol car. She came upstairs and found me still sitting on the guest bedroom floor, phone in hand. Are you okay? She asked. I don't know. Am I? You're safe. That's what matters. And Monique, the 911 recording, we got his confession. He admitted to killing Lauren. That's enough for murder charges. What happens now? Now we finish building the case. The autopsy on Lauren should give us toxicology results. Julia Morrison is cooperating. Apparently Rick told her things that implicate him in Lauren's death and his abuse of Chloe. Combined with everything we already have, this case is airtight. What about Chloe? She's safe. We have her in protective custody until Rick's arraignment. After that, with him in jail, she'll be able to go back to school. Can I see her?
Yes. Come on.
I'll drive you. We went to the police station, where Chloe was waiting. When she saw me, she burst into tears. I held my stepdaughter while she sobbed, this brave girl who'd finally been heard, finally been believed. It's over, I told her. He's arrested. He confessed. It's over. Is it really? She asked, pulling back to look at me. Is he really going to prison?
He is.
I promise you he is. Detective Santos joined us in the small conference room where we'd been reunited. I need to update you both on what we've learned in the past few hours. It's a lot. We sat down, Chloe's hand gripping mine. First, the exhumation. The preliminary findings from the pathologist show elevated levels of digoxin in Lauren's tissue samples. Digoxin is a heart medication. In small doses, it's therapeutic. In large doses, it's fatal. Lauren wasn't prescribed digoxin. She had no heart condition. He was poisoning her, Chloe whispered. Just like I thought. It appears so. The full toxicology report will take another week, but the pathologist is confident that digoxin poisoning was a contributing factor in her death. Combined with her weakened state from cancer, it would have been easy to mask. The symptoms, nausea, weakness, confusion, would have been attributed to the cancer progression. How did he get digoxin? I asked. That's where Julia Morrison comes in. Julia's mother had a heart condition. She was prescribed digoxin. Rick had access to it through Julia. We believe he started dating Julia specifically to gain access to the medication months before Lauren's death. The calculation, the premeditation. It was staggering. Julia is cooperating fully, Detective Santos continued. She had no idea what Rick was using the medication for. She thought he was taking it for his own heart issues. But she did tell us something else. Rick confessed to her, during one of their trips to New York. He told her he'd freed himself from a bad marriage, that his first wife had tried to ruin him, so he'd ruined her first. He told his mistress he killed his wife? I was incredulous. Not in those exact words, but enough that Julia understood what he meant. She was scared of him after that. That's why the payments in the ledger, he was paying her to keep quiet, essentially buying her silence. Will she testify?
Chloe asked. She already has.
We have her full statement. And Monique, the 911 recording of Rick kicking down the door, of him confessing to killing Lauren, that's admissible evidence. The DA is filing charges today. First-degree murder for Lauren's death. Multiple counts of stalking.
And
She paused, looking at Chloe. And what? Chloe pressed. Criminal sexual abuse of a minor. Based on your testimony and the pattern of behavior we've documented, the DA believes we have enough for charges related to your abuse as well. Chloe started crying again. He's really going to pay for what he did to me?
he is.
I promise you, Chloe, he's going to pay for all of it. Over the next few days, the story broke in the media. Prominent Chicago banker arrested for murder of first wife. Investment firm executive accused of abusing daughter. Wealthy widower's dark secret exposed. Rick's face was all over the news. His colleagues at the bank released a statement saying they were shocked and disturbed by the allegations. His friends claimed they'd never suspected anything. His mother gave an interview saying her son was innocent, that this was all a misunderstanding. But the evidence didn't lie. The toxicology reports. The 911 recording. Julia's testimony. The photos of 17 stalked women. Chloe's testimony. My testimony. The preliminary hearing was 3 weeks after Rick's arrest. Chloe and I both attended, sitting in the back of the courtroom, watching as the prosecution laid out their case. They played the 911 recording. Rick's voice screaming. She was going to leave me. She was going to take Chloe. She was going to destroy everything I'd built. I had no choice. They presented the autopsy findings. Digoxin poisoning. Enough to kill someone in Lauren's weakened condition. They showed the surveillance photos. 17 women. Years of stalking. They had Julia Morrison testify about Rick's confession, about his payments to keep her quiet. And they had Chloe testify. She sat in that witness stand, in front of a courtroom full of strangers, and she told her story. 8 years of abuse. 8 years of fear. 8 years of being told no one would believe her. I watched Rick's face as she testified. He didn't look at her. Couldn't look at her. Just sat there, stone-faced, while his lawyer whispered in his ear. The judge ruled there was sufficient evidence for trial. Rick was denied bail, flight risk, and danger to witnesses. He'd stay in Cook County Jail until trial, which was scheduled for 6 months out. It's really happening, Chloe said as we left the courthouse. He's not going to get away with it. He's not, I agreed. Justice is slow, but it's coming. Those 6 months were hard. Chloe went back to Northwestern but struggled with concentration. She'd have panic attacks before exams. Nightmares about her father. Flashbacks to the abuse. I thought once he was arrested, once everyone knew the truth, I'd feel better, she told me one night over dinner in Evanston. But I don't. I just feel empty. Trauma doesn't disappear just because justice is served, I said gently. You need time. And therapy. And support. Are you in therapy? I am. Started 2 weeks ago. Best decision I ever made. Does it help? It does. Not in a magical way, but in small ways. I'm sleeping better. Not jumping every time I hear a car door. Starting to trust my judgment again. I don't know if I'll ever trust anyone again. You trusted me. You called me that night. You told me the truth. That was different. I was desperate. Maybe.
But you still chose to trust.
That takes courage. Chloe looked at me across the table. Why did you believe me?
When I told you about Dad.
Why didn't you think I was lying or exaggerating like he always said people would? I thought about that question. Because I'd seen the signs. I'd noticed the red flags. I just hadn't let myself see them clearly. When you called me that night, when you finally said out loud what I'd been suspecting deep down, it all clicked into place. I believed you because the truth was already there. You just gave me permission to see it. Thank you. For seeing it. For acting on it. For saving me. You saved yourself, Chloe. I just helped. The trial began in April. It lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution brought witness after witness. Medical examiners. Julia Morrison. 6 of the 17 stalked women. Financial experts who traced the digoxin purchase. Police officers who'd taken reports years ago that were never followed up on. And Chloe. Chloe testified for 2 days. About the abuse. about her father's controlling behavior, about her mother's fears before she died. Rick's defense attorney tried to discredit her, suggested she was lying for attention, suggested she was angry about her father remarrying, suggested she was mentally unstable. But Chloe didn't break. She answered every question calmly, clearly, truthfully. And when the defense attorney asked her, "Isn't it true you've always resented your father?" she looked directly at Rick and said, "I don't resent my father. I'm terrified of him. And I'm angry that it took 18 years for anyone to stop him." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous on all counts. Guilty of first-degree murder. Guilty of 11 counts of stalking. Guilty of criminal sexual abuse of a minor. Guilty of evidence tampering. Guilty of witness intimidation. Rick showed no emotion as the verdicts were read. Just sat there, hands folded, staring straight ahead. At sentencing 2 weeks later, the judge gave him life without possibility of parole for the murder conviction, plus additional years for the other charges. "Mr. Stevens," the judge said, "you abused your position of trust and authority in the most heinous ways imaginable. You killed your wife. You abused your daughter. You terrorized multiple women. You showed no remorse, no acknowledgement of your crimes, no understanding of the pain you caused. I am confident that you will spend the rest of your life in prison, and that is exactly where you belong." Rick was led away in handcuffs. Chloe and I watched him go, this man who'd controlled both our lives for so long. "It's really over," Chloe said. "It's really over." 2 years after Rick's conviction, I stood in a conference room at Northwestern University, looking at a room full of young women who'd come to hear Chloe speak. She was 20 now, a junior majoring in psychology with a minor in criminal justice. And she was about to tell her story to a group of freshman girls as part of a campus safety and abuse awareness seminar. I watched from the back as Chloe took the microphone. She looked so different from the terrified 18-year-old who'd called me at midnight. She stood taller now, spoke with confidence. Her hair was shorter, dyed a deep purple, a choice she'd made after the trial, she'd told me, because for 18 years, Dad controlled everything about my appearance. "Now I get to choose. My name is Chloe Stevens," she began, "and I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse." The room went quiet. 50 young women, all around Chloe's age, all listening intently. "When I was 10 years old, my mother died of cancer, and my father began a pattern of abuse that would continue for the next 8 years. He never raped me. He never physically beat me. But he violated me in ways that are harder to define but no less damaging. He controlled me. He groomed me. He made me feel like my body wasn't my own." Chloe spoke for 30 minutes. She told them about the inappropriate comments, the invasion of privacy, the psychological manipulation, the feeling of being trapped with no way out. "I didn't tell anyone for 8 years," she said, "because I was afraid no one would believe me. Because what he was doing seemed so subtle that I couldn't find the words to explain it. Because he was my father, and aren't fathers supposed to love their daughters? How could I accuse him of abuse when he never hit me, never assaulted me in ways people typically think of as abuse?" She paused, looking around the room. "But here's what I learned. Abuse is abuse. Whether it's physical, sexual, emotional, or psychological. Whether it leaves visible scars or invisible ones. Whether anyone else can see it or not. If someone in a position of power over you is making you feel unsafe, uncomfortable, or violated, that's abuse. And you have every right to speak up about it." After her talk, dozens of girls lined up to speak to her. Some shared their own stories. Some asked for advice. Some just wanted to say thank you for being brave enough to speak publicly. I watched Chloe with each girl, giving them her full attention, validating their experiences, offering resources. This was who she'd become. Someone who'd turned her trauma into purpose. After the seminar ended, Chloe and I went to dinner at a Thai restaurant near campus. "You were amazing today," I told her. "I was nervous. I always get nervous before these talks. You'd never know it. You seemed so confident." That's the thing about trauma. You learn to perform, to show people what they need to see. I spent 8 years performing normalcy for Dad. Now I perform confidence, even when I'm terrified. The difference is, this time it's my choice. How are you really doing? With everything, Chloe considered the question. Some days are good. Some days are hard. Therapy helps. The medication helps. Having you helps. After the trial, Chloe had been diagnosed with PTSD and depression. She'd started intensive therapy and medication. The healing process was slow, nonlinear, frustrating. But she was doing the work. I still have nightmares sometimes, she continued. About him. About the trial. About that night when you came to get me from my dorm. But they're getting less frequent. That's progress. It is. And you know what else helps? The advocacy work. Knowing that my story might help someone else recognize abuse. Might give someone else the courage to speak up. That makes the pain feel less pointless. Chloe had become a campus advocate for survivors of sexual abuse. She volunteered with RANN, the National Sexual Assault Hotline. She testified before the Illinois legislature in favor of stronger laws protecting children from familial abuse. She'd been interviewed by local news stations, podcasts, even a national morning show. Have you thought about what you'll do after graduation? I asked. Law school. I want to be a prosecutor. Specifically, I want to prosecute family violence cases. I want to be the person who believes survivors, who fights for them, who makes sure their abusers face consequences. Your mom would be so proud of you. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. I think about her all the time, about how she tried to protect me, how she knew what Dad was and tried to stop him, and how he killed her for it. She saved you, Chloe. Her journals, her documentation, her willingness to confront him even when it put her at risk, all of that helped convict him. She protected you even after she was gone. I know. I just wish I could tell her thank you. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both of us thinking about Lauren. About the woman who'd been a mother to Chloe and could have been a friend to me if Rick hadn't taken her from us. As for me, my own healing journey had been different, but equally challenging. I'd stayed at my friend Sarah's house for 3 months after Rick's arrest, unable to go back to the Winnetka house where I'd lived with a murderer. Eventually, I'd sold that house and bought a small condo in Lincoln Park near the hospital where I worked. I'd gone through my own intensive therapy, processing the guilt and shame of not seeing what Rick was. My therapist, Dr. Patricia Chun, had been instrumental in helping me understand that I wasn't responsible for Rick's deception. Abusers are master manipulators, Dr. Chun had told me. They show different faces to different people. The face he showed you, the charming husband, the devoted father, that was carefully crafted to deceive you. You saw what he wanted you to see. That's not your fault. But knowing it intellectually and feeling it emotionally were two different things. I still struggled with questions. How had I missed the signs? Why hadn't I pushed harder when Chloe said she wasn't safe? What if I'd moved faster, investigated sooner, confronted him earlier? What ifs will drive you crazy, Dr. Chen said. You did the right thing when you learned the truth. You believed Chloe. You gathered evidence. You worked with the police. You kept yourself safe. You did everything right. The person responsible for the abuse is Rick, not you. The divorce had been finalized 6 months after Rick's conviction. Easy and quick, given that he was in prison for life. I'd kept nothing from our marriage except a few pieces of furniture and my own personal belongings. Everything else, the house, his assets, his accounts, I'd wanted nothing to do with. I'd started dating again about a year after the trial. Cautiously. Carefully. The first man I dated post-Rick had been nice, but ultimately wrong for me. The second had been more promising, but not ready for the kind of baggage I came with. The third, Michael, a pediatrician I'd met through work, had been patient, understanding, and willing to move at my pace. I'm not in a hurry, he'd said on our third date, when I'd explained that I needed to take things slowly. Good relationships are built on trust, and trust takes time. I'm willing to wait. We'd been together for 8 months now. It wasn't perfect. I still had moments of panic, of irrational fear that he was hiding something, that he'd turn out to be someone else. But Michael was steady, consistent, exactly who he appeared to be. And slowly, I was learning to trust again. Beyond therapy and dating, I'd found my own form of advocacy. I'd started a support group for women who'd been deceived by intimate partners, women who'd discovered their husbands were abusers, criminals, or leading double lives. We met twice a month at the hospital where I worked, sharing our stories, our struggles, our healing. "I thought I knew him," was a common refrain in our group. How did I not see it? And I'd tell them what Dr. Chen told me. You saw what they wanted you to see. That's not your fault. I'd also worked with Detective Santos to develop a training program for police officers on recognizing patterns of domestic abuse and coercive control. Too many cases like Chloe's went uninvestigated because the abuse was subtle or because the abuser was respected in the community. We need to do better, Detective Santos had said when we launched the program. We need to believe survivors. We need to investigate even when the abuser seems unlikely. We need to understand that abuse doesn't always look the way we expect it to look. The training program had been adopted by the Chicago Police Department and was being rolled out to other departments across Illinois. It wasn't much in the grand scheme of things, but it was something. It was progress. 6 months after Chloe's talk at Northwestern, I got a call from a producer at a national news magazine show. They wanted to do a feature on Chloe's case, on the conviction of a prominent banker for murdering his wife and abusing his daughter. "We'd like to interview both of you," the producer said. "Chloe as the survivor, you as the stepmother who believed her and helped bring her abuser to justice." It's a powerful story. I'd been hesitant. I didn't want to exploit Chloe's trauma for ratings. But when I talked to Chloe about it, she'd been enthusiastic. "People need to hear this story," she said. "They need to know that abusers can be anyone, that they hide in plain sight, that they're often the people you'd least suspect. If our story helps even one person recognize abuse or gives one survivor the courage to come forward, it's worth it."
So, we did the interview.
We sat in a studio in downtown Chicago and told our story to millions of viewers. The interviewer asked hard questions. How had I missed the signs? Why hadn't Chloe told anyone sooner? What did we want people to take away from our experience? Chloe answered with grace and honesty. "I want people to understand that abuse isn't always obvious, that victims don't come forward for a lot of valid reasons, and that when someone does come forward, when someone trusts you with their story, believe them. Don't dismiss them. Don't question their motives. Just believe them." I added, "And I want people to know that it's never too late to speak up." Chloe was 18 when she finally told me. 8 years after the abuse started. But that disclosure still led to justice. It still stopped her abuser. Your timeline is your timeline. There's no wrong time to tell the truth. The episode aired on a Sunday evening. Within hours, my phone was flooded with messages. Friends I hadn't talked to in years. Colleagues from work. Strangers who'd found my contact information online. All of them saying the same things. "Thank you for sharing your story. You're so brave." This helped me understand my own experience. But the most important message came from a woman named Diana. She'd watched the episode with her 14-year-old daughter, who'd been acting withdrawn and anxious for months. After the episode ended, the daughter had broken down and revealed that her stepfather had been grooming her, inappropriate comments, boundary violations, all the same patterns Rick had used with Chloe. "Your story gave my daughter the words to explain what was happening," Diana wrote. "We filed a police report today. Her stepfather was arrested. Thank you for giving us the courage to act." I showed the message to Chloe. She read it and started crying.
"This is why we did it," she said.
"This right here. We saved that girl. You saved that girl. By being brave enough to tell your story. We saved her. Together." A year after the TV interview, Chloe graduated from Northwestern. I sat in the audience with my parents, with Sarah, with Michael, watching Chloe walk across the stage to receive her diploma. She was graduating summa cum laude, heading to law school in the fall, on track to become exactly who she wanted to be. At the graduation party afterward, Chloe gave a speech thanking everyone who'd supported her through college. When she got to me, she said, "Monique, you saved my life. Not just by believing me when I told you about Dad, but by showing me what family really means, what love really looks like, what it means to have someone in your corner, no matter what. You didn't have to take me in after the trial. You didn't have to support me through therapy and medication and all my bad days. You didn't have to become my advocate and my cheerleader and my mom, because that's what you are to me. Not my stepmother,
My mom. Thank you for choosing me.
Thank you for loving me. Thank you for teaching me that I deserved better than what Dad gave me. I was crying by the time she finished. We both were. She came over and hugged me, and I held my daughter, because that's what she was, regardless of biology, and I felt grateful that I'd answered that midnight call 2 years ago. That I believed her. That I'd fought for her. Because this moment, this victory, this triumph, this was what it had all been for. Now, 3 years after Rick's conviction, I'm sitting at my kitchen table, writing this story. Not for fame or attention, but because someone out there needs to hear it. Someone is living with an abuser they haven't named yet. Someone is questioning whether their experience counts as abuse. Someone is afraid no one will believe them. So I'm writing this for you. For anyone who needs to hear it. If someone in a position of power over you is making you feel unsafe, that's abuse. If someone is violating your boundaries and then telling you you're overreacting, that's abuse. If someone is isolating you, controlling you, making you question your own reality, that's abuse. And you have every right to name it,
To speak up about it. To seek help.
to escape it. Will it be hard?
Yes.
Will people believe you? Not always. Will the abuser face consequences? Sometimes, but not always. The justice system is imperfect. The healing process is long. The scars, visible and invisible, may never fully fade. But speaking up, naming the abuse, seeking help, that's how you take back your power. That's how you reclaim your life. That's how you become a survivor instead of staying a victim. Chloe called me at midnight because she knew I would believe her. Because she sensed somehow that I would act. That I would protect her. That I would fight for her. I'm so grateful she trusted me with her truth. And I'm so proud of who she's become. Not despite the trauma, but through it. Through the hard work of healing. Through the choice to turn pain into purpose. If you're reading this and you're in an abusive situation, please know, you deserve better. You deserve safety.
You deserve to be believed.
And there are people out there who will fight for you if you let them. You just have to make that midnight call. You just have to trust someone with your truth. You just have to take that first terrifying step toward freedom. And when you do, I promise you, there will be people ready to catch you. Ready to believe you. Ready to help you build the life you deserve. Because that's what happened for Chloe. She made the call. She told the truth. And together, we built something better than what was stolen from her. We built safety. We built trust. We built a family. And you can too. Rick served 3 years in prison before he died. Heart attack in his cell. He was only 47. Part of me felt nothing when I heard. Part of me felt relief that Chloe would never have to fear him getting out, never have to worry about parole hearings or appeals. Part of me felt sad that he died without ever truly acknowledging what he'd done, without ever apologizing to his daughter or taking real responsibility. But mostly I felt free. The last thread connecting me to that nightmare was severed. He was gone. And we could fully move forward. Chloe's reaction was more complicated. I thought I'd feel happy, she told me when I called with the news. I thought I'd celebrate, but instead I just feel empty. Like I wasted so much time being afraid of someone who turned out to be mortal after all. He controlled so much of your life. It makes sense that his death would feel anticlimactic. I kept waiting for him to show remorse. To admit what he did.
To apologize.
And now he never will. That door is closed forever. Some people never apologize. Some people can't face what they've done. That's on him, not on you. I know. It's just, I wanted him to admit it. Not just in court, where he had to, but to me, privately. I wanted him to look at me and say, I'm sorry for hurting you. And now I'll never get that. You're allowed to grieve that. Even though he hurt you. Even though he doesn't deserve your grief. You're allowed to grieve the father you should have had, the apology you deserved but never got. Chloe was in her first year of law school by then. Columbia Law in New York. She'd chosen to leave Chicago, to start fresh somewhere Rick had never been. She was thriving there, top of her class, working with the school's domestic violence clinic, already making a name for herself as a fierce advocate for survivors. I'm going to be okay, she said. Eventually. I'm going to take his death as what it is, a final chapter closing. And then I'm going to keep doing the work. Keep helping survivors. Keep fighting for justice. That's my victory. Not his death, but what I build in his absence.
And she did.
After law school, Chloe clerked for a federal judge, then joined the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. She prosecuted family violence cases, just like she'd said she would. She won more cases than she lost. She became known as someone who believed survivors, who fought for them relentlessly, who wouldn't let wealthy or connected abusers intimidate her. Your daughter called me yesterday. Detective Santos told me 5 years after Rick's conviction. We'd stayed in touch, meeting for coffee every few months. She prosecuted a case I worked on. Father who'd been abusing his daughter for 6 years. We had good evidence, but the defense attorney was making it hell for the victim. Chloe destroyed him in court, got a guilty verdict and a 20-year sentence. She's good at what she does. She's incredible. And that girl she was prosecuting for? After the verdict, she hugged Chloe and said, "I want to be like you when I grow up." That's legacy, Monique. That's impact. I thought about that conversation a lot. About legacy and impact. About how Rick had intended to leave a legacy of wealth and success, but instead left a legacy of trauma and conviction. And how Chloe was building her own legacy, one of justice and healing and hope. As for me, I'd found my own form of impact. The support group I'd started had grown. We now had 3 groups meeting weekly, serving over 50 women. I'd written a book about my experience, titled The Midnight Call, A Stepmother's Journey from Deception to Justice. The book had sold modestly but reached the people it needed to reach. Survivors who needed to know they weren't alone, families trying to understand abuse dynamics, professionals working with survivors. I'd also started speaking publicly, like Chloe, at hospitals, at conferences, at community centers, telling our story, emphasizing the importance of believing survivors, teaching people to recognize signs of coercive control. At one speaking engagement, a woman approached me afterward. She was in her 50s, well-dressed, composed. "My daughter told me about abuse from her stepfather when she was 16, the woman said. I didn't believe her. I thought she was acting out, trying to break up my marriage. I sent her to live with her father instead. She's 28 now. She hasn't spoken to me in 12 years. After hearing your story, I understand what I did wrong. I failed her. And I don't know if she'll ever forgive me. Have you tried apologizing?" "I've tried. She won't take my calls." "Then write her a letter. Tell her you believe her now.
Tell her you're sorry.
Don't make excuses. Don't try to justify what you did. Just apologize. And then give her space to decide if, and when she's ready to respond. She may never forgive you, but at least she'll know you finally believe her. Sometimes that's all a survivor needs, to be believed, even if it's too late for justice." The woman started crying. "Thank you. I'll do that." I thought about that interaction for days afterward, about how many survivors out there weren't believed, how many families were fractured because someone chose the abuser over the victim, how crucial that initial belief was, that first moment of "I believe you" that could change everything. Michael and I got married 4 years after Rick's conviction. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Chloe was my maid of honor. She gave a speech at the reception about second chances and chosen family. "Monique showed me that family isn't just about biology," Chloe said. "It's about who shows up,
Who believes you?
who fights for you." She showed up for me when I needed her most. And she's been showing up every day since. That's what real family looks like. We bought a house in Oak Park, a suburb west of Chicago with tree-lined streets and excellent schools. Not that we needed excellent schools. We decided not to have children. Michael had 2 from his first marriage who we saw regularly. Chloe was as close to a daughter as I would ever need. And honestly, after everything with Rick, the idea of bringing a child into the world felt overwhelming. "I'm okay with this decision," I told Dr. Chun in one of our sessions. "I really am. But sometimes I feel guilty, like I'm letting Rick win. Like his abuse scared me away from having the family I might have wanted." Or, Dr. Chun suggested, "You're making a choice based on self-awareness and realistic assessment of what you can handle. That's not letting him win. That's you taking control of your life, of your decisions." Rick doesn't get a vote anymore. She was right. Rick didn't get a vote anymore. Not in my decisions about children or career or how I spent my time. He was gone. And I was free to build the life I actually wanted, not the life I'd thought I was supposed to want. I stayed in touch with several of the women from Rick's photo folders, the ones Detective Santos had tracked down. We'd formed an unusual support group, bound together by the man who'd terrorized us. "It's strange," said Melissa, who'd been one of Rick's colleagues and one of his stalking victims. "He made me feel so isolated, so alone. Like I was the only one who saw through his charm. But there were so many of us. He had a pattern. And knowing that makes me feel less crazy. That's what abusers do," said another woman, Jennifer. "They make you think you're the problem. That you're too sensitive, too paranoid. But when you realize there's a whole group of women with the same experience, you see the pattern. You see that it wasn't you. It was him. We met quarterly, this group of Rick's former targets. We shared updates on our lives, our healing, our victories. We celebrated milestones, new jobs, new relationships, therapy breakthroughs. We supported each other through setbacks, bad days, triggering events, moments when the trauma felt fresh again. "I'm buying a house," Melissa announced at one of our meetings. "By myself. No man's name on the deed. No one else's opinion about where I should live or what I should buy. Just me, making a decision for myself." We all cheered, because we understood what that meant. How hard it was to trust your own judgment after someone had spent so long undermining it. 7 years after Rick's conviction, I received an email from a woman named Tara. She'd read my book and wanted to share her story. Her father had abused her throughout her childhood. She'd tried to tell her mother multiple times, but her mother hadn't believed her, had accused her of lying, of trying to destroy the family. "I'm 32 now," Tara wrote. "I haven't spoken to my mother in 15 years. But I wanted you to know that your story helped me. Not because my mother ever believed me, she didn't, but because reading about how you believed Chloe, how you fought for her, showed me what I deserved, what I should have received, but didn't. And somehow, knowing that some stepmothers do choose to believe, do choose to protect, helped me stop blaming myself for my mother's failure." I wrote back to Tara. We exchanged several emails. Eventually, she agreed to join one of my support groups. She'd spent 15 years feeling like her mother's failure to believe her meant she wasn't believable. Learning that belief is a choice, that her mother's choice said everything about her mother and nothing about Tara's credibility, was transformative for her. "I always thought there was something wrong with me," Tara said in group one evening. "Something that made my mother not believe me.
But it wasn't me.
It was her. She chose comfort over truth. She chose my father over me. And that's her failure, not mine. This is the work I do now, helping survivors understand that when someone doesn't believe them, it's not because their story isn't credible. It's because belief requires courage, requires disruption, requires choosing truth over comfort. And not everyone has that courage, but some do. Detective Santos had it. The prosecutors who took Rick's case had it. The jurors who convicted him had it. The reporters who covered the story fairly had it. All those people chose truth over comfort, belief over skepticism. And I had it. That midnight when Chloe called me, when she said "Mom" for the first time, when she told me something she'd been afraid to say for 8 years, I chose to believe her. I chose to act. I chose her over my husband, truth over comfort, justice over peace. That choice changed everything.
For Chloe, yes.
But for me too. Because choosing to believe her taught me something essential. Sometimes the most important thing you can do for another person is simply to believe them. To witness their pain. To validate their reality. To say, "I believe you, and I will help you." Those 5 words, "I believe you, I'll help," changed both our lives. They gave Chloe the courage to pursue justice. They gave her the support she needed to heal. They gave her the foundation to build a life she'd never thought possible. And they gave me purpose. They turned my worst nightmare, discovering I'd married a monster, into something meaningful. I couldn't undo the years Chloe suffered. I couldn't bring Lauren back. I couldn't erase the trauma Rick had inflicted. But I could believe. I could help. I could fight. I could refuse to look away from uncomfortable truths. I could choose survivors over abusers every single time. That's the legacy I want to leave. Not the woman who was married to a murderer, but the woman who believed a survivor, who fought for justice, who turned pain into purpose. That's what I hope you take from this story. That belief matters. That speaking up matters. That fighting for survivors matters. And if you're a survivor reading this, I hope you know your story matters. Your pain is real. Your experience is valid. And there are people out there who will believe you, who will fight for you, who will help you build the life you deserve. You just have to make that call. Take that first step. Trust someone with your truth. It won't be easy. The path to justice is long and difficult. Healing isn't linear. The scars may never fully fade, but you deserve to be free. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be believed. And when you're ready to tell your story, there will be someone ready to believe you. Just like I believed Chloe. Just like I hope someone believes you. Did you like this story? Which city are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. If this story touched you or helped you in any way, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing important stories like this to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. On the screen, you can see more life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story.
See you in the next one.
With love and respect, and with deep admiration for every survivor out there, you are believed. You are valued. You are not alone.